Hello, internet people. We love you. I had forgotten about you, but not for very long. All right. So the skill, it's really interesting when you really start to think of meditation as a skill in the same way that you would learn like guitar or piano or something like that. You have all these different modalities, all these different scales, all these different skills. And so one of the skills to do repetitions of, just like a bench press or something like that, or running a scale, is expanding your awareness and then contracting your awareness and expanding your awareness and contracting your awareness. Um, and so that feeling of becoming very big is really helpful when we talk about infinite beings. Like, Jake, I know you don't go to the Saturdays and I've discontinued the Saturdays. But one of the ideas of equanimity was developing loving compassion toward one being and then expanding that for infinite beings, that same feeling. And so once we start to have these experiences of big-mindedness or open, like total open-heartedness or expansiveness, that idea of living open-hearted as a way of life becomes something that's more practicable. Because if you have this feeling of being big and you have this attitude and you're cultivating that and you're imprinting that into your being, and then you go and walk around, off the cushion, that feeling is much more accessible where you can just walk down and hold all the beings around you with this attitude of loving kindness. Really cool. And then at the same time, getting single point of focus is really, really interesting to call back that feeling of single pointed clarity when you're in conversation with somebody. Your mind can be discursive, like running all over the place. You can be mind wandering, like thinking about what you're going to talk about while they're talking to you, which is not being very present. And so if you can come back to that practice experience of single pointed concentration and hold them in single pointed concentration with loving kindness, it's actually I don't really know how to talk about it other than what I just said, but it's pretty cool. So I love that feeling of big. It's also really nice to practice the feeling of small. And you'll find, if you go into a deep dive into the literature on meditation, they talk about that a lot, becoming the size of a galaxy and then, becoming the size of a single, like tip of a pin. Which is why when we do the prostrations, one of the useful parts is we imagine all the atoms of the universe as a Buddha, and then we emanate ourselves to match every single one of those atoms, which I can't help but think of as like matter and antimatter, like a yin and yang for every single object of the entire universe, where you're matching a Buddha with you as a Buddha, and then you prostrate to, the special quality that's inherent in every single material thing. Um, that's an expansive prostration. And then the contraction prostration then, if you guys remember, I know I didn't do the guided meditation and I do apologize. I do still have the intention of doing that. Is you imagine all the Buddhas on a single, like that same quantity of Buddhas on the tip of a pin, and then you prostrate to that. So it's actually because remember, Buddhas don't exist. And so you get to play with the concept. You're just finding these thought patterns that are extremely useful, and then you start to play with them like Play-Doh. Um, so that's where we can see that dynamic already in the preliminaries of expansion and contraction. And then I just like really leaned in on that in the meditation last week. Okay, cool. Um, Before we get into today's class, anybody want to share anything? No obligation, just opening the door, questions, comments, concerns, stories, trivialities. Cool, let's do it. Um, so I'm going to do the meditation first, and then I'll teach what we did today. Um, but to do that, so I'm going to be using like the traditional words. Um, what I hoped to do last week was show how this framework of the preliminaries are incredibly adaptable. And you can get extremely traditional with it, meaning like using religious words and using very like classic symbolism. But then what's amazing about this practice is that it's totally transformable to whatever context you choose. So, But that being said, I've chosen to teach this course in in a pretty traditional way. Um, so with that being said, I wanted to say two things before we do this. Well, actually, three things. First is when I say a parasol is like a sun umbrella. So that's what we mean by parasol. And then when I say symbols, that is a symbol of music, like ksh, ksh, symbols. And then last clarification is Mount Meru. So according to the Buddhist um like map of the world, this is it. I don't know how to show you. Well, here. Here. So this is the Buddhist map of the world. That's a whole different teaching. But it's really beautiful. And so the ring fingers is Mount Meru, which is at the center of the world, and it's the highest mountain. Um, Deep symbolism that helps you understand how to relate to the world. Not today's intention. What's important is I'm going to say as high as Meru, and what that means is imagine at the middle of the world is the tallest mountain, like Mount Everest at the center. You can think of it like that. Cool. Cool. All right. So we're going to have fun with our offering today. So when you're ready, get into your spots. So we can tidy if we haven't already. Okay, that's all I got. You get to the point where things are already tidy, so it doesn't take long to tidy, but you still do it anyway. If something's at 89 degrees, you can set it to 90 degrees, so it's nicely square. All right. Uh, yeah, cool. And then and today I'm gonna make it a special offering. Uh, I have an entire drawer of incense that collected around the world, and this one is really special. I really like this one. I offered this to an abbot in a Zen monastery in Japan. I took one home for me, and it was one of the most beautiful offerings I've ever given. And I'm gonna take a moment to tell you the story I've decided just now. So, this guy let our entire community go into like stay for a couple of days in their monastery in Japan, and the monastery's been around for 1100 years. This habit was incredible, and he taught me exactly how to receive an offering. Well, and the reason I'm going to take a moment for it right now is we're going to be offering that offering, and we're going to imagine it being received. This is what he did. As soon as I gave him this offering, it was a bunch of things, but one of it was incense, and he immediately took it to the altar, put it on the altar, and lit the incense immediately. Like then there's a line of people behind me. So it's just this idea of like anything that we receive is not for us. Everything that we receive is for the sake of all beings. And he didn't have a single moment in my perception of him where he was like, oh, this is mine. Right? Like this guy's just receiving offerings after offerings after offerings, and he's just a conduit. And I just thought that that was really special. And he immediately offered it forward. So I think that that's a really sweet way to be. Okay, so let's come into our posture. After we've made our little offering. No. If anybody reminds me, I'd like to show a picture of him at the end of class. Eight-pointed posture, we learned about that. I'm not going to roll through it. Enter in a state of vibrant relaxation. I love to imagine Bruce Lee when I get into posture. He is as fluid as water, but as poised as a cobra. just arrive. 10 breaths. If your mind has wandered, bring it back. My intention is to keep my attention on the sensation of breath. Go for refuge. I refuse to participate in the perpetuation of suffering. And instead, I go for refuge in the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Because I understand emptiness, I refuse to respond to anger with anger, violence with violence, stealing with stealing. I know that that can never, ever get me what I actually want. Bodhicitta. And it's not just what I want, it's meeting my own needs and the needs of all beings. That's why I live the life of a spiritual warrior. I know what suffering is like, and I know that other people suffer too. And so I'm resolved to become the best version of me for the sake of all beings. With grace and humility, but persistence and conviction. I make my whole being an offering to the universe. Bring a teacher to mind. See them in a very real way. You can see their chest rise and fall as they breathe, their hair slightly move. Maybe you can even smell them. the same way that they are somebody who has taught you something, in turn, you can imagine that they also had a teacher that taught them something. And actually, you're the recipient of that original wisdom, passing through the one that you see as teacher. So imagine that person, even as a concept. Imagine that person behind your teacher. You don't necessarily even see them, but you know they're there. And then logically, that teacher also had a teacher, and so on and so forth. So you can imagine a line stretching back into infinity of teachers teaching teachers, of which you are a recent recipient of. And now imagine that entire lineage collapsing into the teacher in front of you, like an expanded accordion contracting. And now see your teacher for what they really are, which is a culmination of an entire lineage of kindness. So now we prostrate not just to your teacher, but to the kindness they now symbolize. Kindness, which is wisdom in combination with a willingness to serve others and share. Think about how that kindness has impacted your life. What have you learned from that person? How has it made your life rich, meaningful? We'll take a couple minutes of silence for you to consider this. And have the metacognitive awareness that each time that you celebrate this good quality of your teacher and express gratitude for its impact on your life, you are amplifying that karma in your mind because that's how karma works. And all the thoughts that you've had, dwell in the one which opens your heart the widest. You can even anatomically assist yourself with opening your shoulders, opening your chest just slightly. And now, from a place of total open-heartedness, we make offerings. And offerings are just saying thank you. Without teachers, we'd just be animals. And so I make offerings to all of these victorious ones. So you're seeing your teacher in their ideal form as a perfection of kindness. And imagine offering them holy flowers. Literally imagine it. And it has nothing to do with the flowers. It has everything to do with your heart. So maybe you can imagine the entire sky opening up and raining down rose petals in every direction, as far as the eye can see. And you look at your teacher and you say, "Hmm, thank you. I hope you like this." Or maybe you offer them a single, absolutely perfect lotus. Just one, but perfect. And in the traditional way of India, imagine offering them a holy garland, which is a string of flowers. You can wrap it around their neck. And even as you're imagining it, you can feel that special feeling when you get close to a beautiful person. The air becomes rarefied and simultaneously electric and cozy and beautiful, and maybe you smell their sweet fragrance. And they're just in bliss. They don't need any of the things that you give them, but they love that you have a heart of giving. It means that you learned. And now you offer them symbols. And out of these symbols plays the most divine music you could ever even conceptualize. It's their favorite song, played perfectly. Maybe even the live band arrives and they start playing it. Offer them music. Or maybe you sing them a song and it pours out of your heart. And you offer them ointments, which is to say, very special oil, fragrant, pure. There's these shops in India that are just filled with the most exquisite essential oils. So you offer them every single kind of perfect ointment. They don't need it, but they're just happy that you're giving. And you offer them a parasol. You open it up and shade them from the sun, just covered in jewels of the finest craftsmanship, embroidered. And you offer them the highest lamp. Just imagine offering them beautiful light. Maybe it's rainbows shooting out of crystals as a light hits a prism, or maybe they like cool laser shows or something. But offer them light. And now you offer them the most exquisite incense, which is just the bliss of the olfactory. So maybe they love the smell of French fries, so you light some French fry incense. Whatever smell you know they love, you just offer them that. I make these offerings to all of these victorious ones, holy silken clothing. There's something so special about the feeling of really nice fabric. So offer that to them. And now we offer a mountain of incense powder as high as Meru, all set forth. You can imagine all these offerings set forth in a way more lovely than any other thing there is. Imagine it was literally the most lovely thing ever. And now look into their eyes and imagine what they see. They are a bodhisattva. And the thing which pleases the Bodhisattva more than anything is to see beings living with kindness and wisdom. And so you see your teacher pleased that they see somebody who lives kindly, generously, with wisdom. That's the real offering. And as we finish our meditation, have the awareness of the impact of the practice we just did. By meeting beautiful qualities with gratitude and making actions toward those qualities out of a spirit of gratitude, we force our minds to take the shape of those positive qualities because that's how a mind is created. And by making offerings today, we simply chose to be intentional about the molding of our mind. No one forgets a good party. That's what this should feel like. It's just a good party where you're celebrating the most beautiful qualities you literally could ever imagine as you see them in your world already, in the reflection of your teacher. And now we'll quickly finish by asking our teacher to continue to teach and asking them to stay until there's nothing left to learn. And we dedicate this to seeing a world which takes the shape of the mold we just celebrated. And you can begin to extend your exhales and open your eyes. Take a stretch. Tell me about your experience. That was a it was a gauntlet you just ran through.
Yeah, it was interesting. Um, and I mentioned earlier that last night, Lauren, I had some pretty real conversations, and I feel like there was a lot of my heart was very closed off for a couple of
Hmm.
days, I think, leading up to that. And it's really interesting. And this is actually a question I was going to ask you last night. I tried meditating, and it was like it felt, if not not useful, then counterproductive because of where I was in both my mind and my heart. And it was really interesting on the other side of having that conversation now, still feeling like the lingering effects of having a closed heart,
Mhm.
then being met by that intentional gratitude.
Mhm.
Um, it's an interesting feeling, interesting ecosystem to look in on and then to feel like setting the stones for that shift to occur.
Mhm.
Um,
That's,
it's pretty awesome.
mhm.
Yeah,
Thanks for
I,
sharing.
I also I also really um deeply enjoyed that meditation, and I think having that I guess kind of style and format where, and we've kind of talked about this before, Bob, but like holding uh like the object of a stream of
Hmm.
kind of like unfolding objects and thoughts and meditation is something I'm finding, naturally a lot more
Oh,
kind of,
yeah.
yeah, like accessible.
Yeah.
And so in contrast to, other experiences with meditation I've been having over the last year, this was definitely one where I felt like I was really able to hold my focus throughout it in a way that felt really pleasant and very connected. And so
Amazing.
feeling gratitude in this moment for that.
Ah, you are a student of Pabonka Rinpoche. Uh, Pabonka Rinpoche is the teacher of my teacher's teacher's teacher. And
Well,
and he's famous for familiarizing that as a very legitimate uh, practice. And he has a treasure trove of practices around that. And it's because of his teaching that I had that information to share with you.
mm,
Single point of focus takes many different forms. Single point of focus, some people think that it's taking it onto the same object over and over and over and over and over again. But if we were to think about that literally, one object to the next is actually a different object because a karma is simply a moment of perception. And so people think the only way to do that is to have the same image as the object over and over and over and over again. But really, what it is unwavering concentration. And so the object, instead of a stream of the same image, it's a stream of different images with the equal quality of concentration and intentionality. And I definitely was very relieved when I heard that that was an option. And then I could lean into it and it became extremely useful for me. So thanks for relaying that, LJ. I really felt that you would like this meditation, especially. So glad to hear that.
yeah, no, it really was a good one. And I feel like I feel like a lot of times during these classes, I'm kind of sharing things like, yeah, it was actually really, hard, or my practice kind of hasn't been, you know, whatever expectation I might have around it. And so definitely happy to rejoice and celebrate when there's a deep moment of, connection and feeling like
Yeah.
centered in that way. So thank you.
Cool. Thanks, LJ.
Am I muted?
Jakob.
Yeah. Um, I have I feel like I gained a new understanding for why focusing on the positive qualities of the teacher really
Yes.
strongly in myself. And I think that there are obviously layers to everything that we're talking about, but there is kind of a meaningful moment and shift in that, in understanding like the origins of those positive qualities and then the power in really deliberately celebrating them for myself to then be able to pass that and like exhibit those and either have them tacitly or actively applied by others moving forward in a meaningful way.
Huzzah. Nice. So sick. Cool. Nice. Um, let's do okay. Paul, when you were sharing, you said that there was a question that you asked, but I don't know if I heard a question. I want to make sure that we hit that before I go into the curriculum.
No, it's a question I was considering asking. Um,
Ah, okay, cool.
and it sort of leads back to something you said in one of the early classes, like one of the improper uses of meditation is
Mm,
habituating the mind to negative, not negative, I forgot exactly the wording you used. But rather than habituating the mind to gratitude, love, and forgiveness, or whatever virtue you're habituating towards.
Yeah.
Um, like it felt at some point last night like I was like stewing on some things.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And yeah, I guess maybe that's something for another class to consider. Like when does the like is that contemplation? Is that meditation? Is that
Yeah.
rumination? Is that fixation? Like
Yeah, so meditation I mean, let's address it real quick because I think it's useful in case, I die tomorrow or like later today or something. I think it'd be useful to at least address it. Meditation is simply habituation of the mind. It's agnostic to the content. It's simply the action of habituation of the mind. And then when we do it in the context of Buddhism, that's where we begin to put value judgments on the quality of the content. Does that make sense?
absolutely.
So, the words that I tend to use are destructive and constructive. So, like, is this a destructive habit or is this constructive? Like, is it a place of refuge or is it a place of the perpetuation of suffering? Is kind of like a nice little axiom to dance along. And um, it's important to meditate on if someone if someone hold on, my teacher said this and I'm gonna try to do it justice. If someone takes a dump on your desk, you gotta look at it, but you get rid of it as soon as possible. You know what I mean? Like, so you don't like don't stew on shit. Like and so a lot of people they'll stew on shit. And so just start composting it like as soon as possible. But you have to address it. You have to be with it, or else, you have to understand it. There's something extremely valuable there. But you don't want to linger longer than you absolutely need to understand what you're working with. And then you begin the transformation process. And that's where we learn a lot of the skills, which we haven't gotten into in this course, of how to do active transformation. So I would say that that's the first thing I say. The second thing I would say is you have a great Tai Chi practice, Paul, just because I know you. And in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, which is a very important text, it said that the taming the winds is easier than taming the mind. And so the wind is the most subtle version of the body. It's like the pranic, the chi in your body. And so if you're in a spot where you're like just caught in a loop that you know is not constructive and there's just nothing you can really feel like you can do about it, despite all of the different techniques or methods, then stop meditating and do a movement practice. It is so useful to move the wind. And so what you just do is you don't even think about the object necessarily. You just focus on the state of being. So I realize I'm not open-hearted right now. Okay, I'm just going to be open-hearted. And as I move in my Tai Chi practice, my yoga asana practice, or whatever movement practice you have, you hold that intention of whatever is the opposite of the thing you're struggling with. Pratipaksha Bhavana, second chapter of the Yoga Sutra. When the images begin to harass you, meditate on the opposite. So the images of like, you know, the world is just a series of mental images that become physical things as an example. And so you just take the opposite image. So take the negative. So if you're feeling anger, the opposite of that is patience, for example, or a perfect understanding of wisdom. If you're feeling jealousy, then the opposite of that is celebrating the success of others. And so one of the studies that we can do that I'd love to teach, I actually dream of creating a series called Devil Slayers, because there's five devils that are slayed by five angels. And so being a spiritual warrior is about slaying devils. And so you get to learn what the opposite of the major negative emotions are so you can begin to practice those so that the light drives out the darkness. And you can do that in a moving practice as well as a seated practice. And then once you've done your movement, then you can go back and see if the seeds have changed, which they will have in some regard because seeds open based on the flowing of wind.
Mhm. That's super insightful. Thank you. Yeah, I really felt that like one of your classes you were saying like, when in doubt, serve it out. Like you have to build the
Yeah, man.
ethical karma to live to actually see the fruition of meditation. And
Yeah.
it's really clicking.
Yeah, I mean,
And
there's like
I'm
whole
seeing it
weeks.
manifest. It's wonderful. So
That's
thanks.
that's awesome. There's whole weeks when I just cannot meditate. It's just like you just sit down and it's just like total absolute garbage. And so what I do is I just go and I serve first. You know, like they in China they say get a new tea bag. It's like you're on your fifth steep of an old tea bag. Like get a new tea bag, dog. So go serve. Refresh the tea bag and then go steep. Um, but otherwise you're steeping like a rotting sack of leaves. And so it's not good.
Heard. Yeah.
Uh, and
Thank
I've
you.
seen I've seen that in extremely profound ways. The one who taught me that, anyway, it was extremely profound. What we said was like kind of silly and flippant, but I swear to God, it's extremely profound. Okay, 5 minutes. Let's do it. We'll end on time. Here we go. We're uh we're offering. That's great. Here's the meditation process. This is the six prerequisites and the six preliminaries and the seven limb prayer, which by the way, I have to change this to seven ingredient prayer. Long story. Won't do it today. But I just heard my teacher teach that we should be teaching that as ingredients, not as limbs. Okay, so here's the root text. This is what we did today. You can check this out later. So this is the first type of offering. We only did one type of offering. Um, and the first type of offering, according to this exact specific application, right? There's a million types of offerings. There's so many different scenarios that we can dig into. But in the very specific text that we're pulling from for this course, there's two types of offerings. And the first is that which does have something higher. So like literal flowers, garlands, symbols, ointments, parasols, lamps, incense, uh, silken cloth, scents, powder as high as Meru. Those are just examples of things which have something higher. What does that mean? Well, it helps us to understand the second type, and we didn't do this today. Um, am I sharing the correct screen?
Yep.
Yeah, all right, cool. Second type is that which does not have something higher. So offerings which we say have something higher are those of worldly beings. So this is all stuff that worldly beings create, flowers and symbols and ointments and all this stuff. So still valid, we should still do it. But there's something which does not have something higher. And this is such a profound teaching, which, one day, if you guys wanted to, I could spend just 1 hour on this next sentence, in a really profound way. Therefore, the offerings made in this verse consist of all the many wondrous things that very powerful beings, such as bodhisattvas, are capable of emanating with their mind. So, what is that? I see as well, after we just did all those things we did in today's meditation, I see as well any and every offering unsurpassed, reaching far and wide, handed up to every victor by all the power of my faith in the deeds of goodness. May I truly bow down and make offerings unto all the victors. So, as soon as we are working within the world is dyed in the stain of suffering. All right. So like as soon as you take form, As soon as there is form in a worldly, mundane, conventional sense, that is an object of suffering. The thing which transforms objects of suffering into objects which could never create suffering is how we see them. And so a bodhisattva, technically, like we say that we're baby bodhisattvas in that it's an attitude of like I want to help all beings. I want to become the best version of me for the sake of all beings. That's like the baby bodhisattva. It's also true for like real bodhisattvas, but like technical bodhisattva, when you get your badge, when the Buddha is just like you got your merit badge, Cub Scout, it's when you see emptiness directly for the first time. And when you see emptiness directly for the first time, you've seen the ultimate nature of things, precisely, perfectly, purely, accurately. Up till then, it's an intellectual understanding that coffee is only good because, I make it good, but I can definitely abuse it, and then it's a bad thing. And so there's understanding the emptiness of coffee in an extremely direct way is exactly how a bodhisattva truly sees. Ah, see you later, Jake. Is how a bodhisattva truly. Oh man, I wish that you heard this. It's okay. You probably already got it. And so when we make an offering with the mind of a bodhisattva, a true bodhisattva, it means that we perfectly understand it. The reason that we have suffering is because we have a basic misunderstanding of things, period. And so a true bodhisattva doesn't have a misunderstanding of things. And so when they see a thing, they see it in a way that has no misunderstanding embedded in the view of it, which means it's a cause for liberation instead of a cause of suffering. And so when we make offerings in unsurpassed way, unsurpassed means there's literally nothing that you could do more perfectly. Like me offering a flower to my wife, I still can't help but think that there's a flower that is beautiful from its own side, and so therefore I offer it to her because I think that she'll like the flower as if the flower has a quality. But a true view would to be to not only see the flower, but to at the same time simultaneously have a perfect view of the emptiness of the flower. And then if we can see the perfect view of a flower, then we can also have a perfect view of our intention. Because even by making an offering, we have some kind of strange intention of that we can like bribe someone into their kindness or something. Like, it's like 1%. It's extremely dilute, but it's still not like absolutely pure. Like I'm working on it, you know what I mean? Like, but there's still some kind of like I am expecting reciprocity of some sort on some subtle level. And so the unsurpassed view is when that motivation is absolutely pure and when the view is absolutely pure. And so we practice that because by practicing it, we are planting the seeds for us to actually master that. And then once we begin to make offerings like that, then we just jam pack our mind full of just unstoppable karma, which forces us to see ourselves as bodhisattvas. It's not that we become a bodhisattva so we see ourselves as a bodhisattva. It's that we plant the seeds of being a bodhisattva until we have no option but to see ourselves as a bodhisattva because there's no other option. This is how you do that. Okay, great. Class done. Um, that's why I'm so intense on offering. I used to not get it, and then I got it. And now I have to give it. All right. Make your
That's
whole life a
awesome.
fucking offering.
Thanks, Bob.
Spiritual warriors.
Hell yeah, dude.
See
That
you
was a
later.
great class.
All right, love you guys. Meditate
Love
well.
you.
I'll see you soon. Jake, catch
Peace.
that ending. Those last 2 minutes.
Yeah,
They're
send it to me. My Zoom crashed.
Oh no, the karma was too heavy. It broke your
I know,
internet.
I know. It was like my computer literally was like, you don't deserve to get this right now.
No, it's testing your will.
Hell yeah.
Uh,
No, yeah, please. I definitely will.
well, all of it's on the Spiritual Warrior platform. I don't know if you've ever opened it, but it's all there. All right, peace out, Girl Scout. See you
Yeah.
guys soon.